second half of our forum tonight. We'd like to welcome our folks back. We may have some new people in our audience, which is to our back here at this table. Welcome, audience. We'd like to turn our attention to the Berea mayoral race between Stephen Conley and Mary Eipert. Just a reminder, we are with, we meant to say this at the end of the council candidates forum there, and they knew it all through it, but we have BereaOnline.com here tonight, so we'll, and that'll be played later, by the way, I think Thursday or something. So you'll be able to get that on .com for that. But tonight they're also videoing that, so we'll have a break or two to double check some things with our cameras. But we're glad to have them here as they continue to roll for this segment. Guidelines tonight include the candidates right out in front of us, Mr. Conley, Ms. Eipert, and they are seated in ballot order left to right. So that's why that's easy. Well, we make it simple that way. Each candidate in just a moment will have 90 seconds to make an opening statement. We'll be doing that first. Each candidate later, soon right after that, we'll be drawing one question from our fishbowl of questions up there, the one we used earlier, submitted by Berea's business community. Now, questions will cover items like the candidate's vision and priorities, economic development to include tourism as well as industrial and retail development. The proposed community center may come up. Also, other capital construction projects, the restaurant tax, the budget and opportunities to cut expenses, planning and zoning, small business development, and if you're lucky, we may get a question or two because this happened earlier, questions on alcohol. That could crop up. Now, when we get into the fishbowl segment here, and unlike a moment ago when we had 15, 16 council candidates, with only 2, we may have 4 or 5, 6, 7 questions. So we'll just see how time allows, probably 15 minutes or so for that, and we'll see how that goes. Now, want to mention we have our timekeeper here. They'll notify you as to when you got 30 seconds remaining, that kind of thing, and again when time is expired. On the fishbowl questions, after the candidate answers the question, because when we do start this, Steve will have the first one. Read the question, he will, answer it. Our other candidate, Ms. Eipert, will then have 60 seconds as well for a response. 60-60, pretty fair, I think. And by the way, when we get down to the moment where we're ready for a closing statement, we'll also have that, starting with Steve on the left there, and 60 seconds to make closing statements. Questions, by the way, will not be taken from the floor. That worked out a moment ago. We had plenty anyway as it was, and our guests need to be respectful of each candidate. Okay, we are ready, if you will, at this time for our opening statements. And you have you may want to pick your microphones up and use those right there.
Thank you, Mr. Sowers. Do I need to pick it up?
Probably.
Okay, I'll try again. My name is Stephen Connolly. I'm running for mayor. By way of introduction, I was born in the Berea College Hospital back when they had a maternity unit. Went to school in Berea, graduated from Berea College, was in the Army for 3 years, law school, ended up back in Berea in the early 1980s. Have had my law practice here since then. I was fortunate to be elected to the city council in 1996, I believe. Served for 6 years. Have been mayor for the last 8. As mayor, I have been able to present to council 8 balanced budgets. Our city has received 8 clean audits. We have over $4 million in an emergency fund. We have, through the wise leadership of the council, survived the tough economic times of the last 2 years, and we are ready to seize the opportunities that abound in Berea. And I'm running because I would like to participate in doing good things for Berea.
Is it on? It's quite a different atmosphere. You'd think being in a building this big that it wouldn't feel so comfortable and homey like it does. My name is Mary Sue Isaacs Eipert. I was born and raised in Berea. I left after high school and went away to college. I graduated from the University of South Florida with a degree in marketing. I spent several years in the marketing, sales, and advertising field. I've lived in Tampa, Fort Myers, Dayton, and Indianapolis. But when it came down to where do I want my children to call home, there was no questions where that was going to be. That was here in Berea. I want my children to grow up in a town that is small, is charming, is quaint, where you know everyone that you see, or at least it wouldn't take 5 minutes to figure out that you know someone. But the Berea that my children are growing up in looks very different than the Berea I grew up in. When I grew up here, most of the people that lived in Berea worked in Berea, and our life was in Berea. We went to the movies in Berea, we bought new cars in Berea, we bought our clothes in Berea. Everything that we did in Berea. That is not the situation now. And it is economically fearful to think that we are taking all of our money and spending it in other areas. As mayor, will be the responsibility to try to do everything we can to get people to leave their money in Berea. We have to be more business friendly, and we can do that and keep our small time charm. In the 60s and 70s, we gave people all the goods and services they need, and we were smaller then than we are now.
Okay, with our opening statements being concluded, we are ready now for the drawing out the question from the fishbowl, and we'll start with Mr. Conley there on the left. Once you pull that question out, you have 60 seconds to answer that question. Of course, as moderator, I've got a copy of the questions here too, and may ask for further explanation if you fail to respond to the question at hand. We'll keep some leeway there as you begin to answer. Once you're finished with your 60 seconds, then we also have, Mary would have 60 seconds to follow up. Then we'll flip, and then it'll be her time to draw a question. Kind of easy with two people, but just for explanation, there you go. Mr. Conley.
What can be done to expedite completion of the second phase of Berea's bypass? Berea's bypass is designed, has been redesigned. Sorry. Question is, what can be done to expedite the completion of the second phase of Berea's bypass? Berea's bypass is designed. It has been redesigned to be cheaper. All of the right-of-way has been acquired. The one thing that we're waiting on is for the state to accumulate enough money to allow it to be bid out. The state has overbid their road fund. We are number one in line. We're at the mercy of the state.
It's the state project, and we have to get it is a state project, and that's where the money's coming from. I think what we can do is to make sure we do as much business in Kentucky as we possibly can, so that we're continually putting tax dollars into Kentucky instead of other states. And we can do that with how we spend our money locally and through our government. Well, this kind of also goes, my question is, what do you perceive to be the top 3 capital construction projects for Berea in the next 10 years? Well, obviously, the bypass is going to be something coming in. Again, that's using state funds, but that's going to affect a lot of things we do around the areas of the structure. We have got to be prepared to spend money to fix our infrastructure. We were blessed enough to find out this summer that we don't have a good way to control our water. And we've got to be prepared to spend money towards that to control our water so that our people don't get nervous every time it rains. The third would probably having to be the fact that we have got to continue to make sure that we have good electric, water, and sewer service as well as our water structure. I'm out of time, sorry.
Well, there are 4 capital projects that are funded and will occur in the next 4 years. They are the Berea bypass, the widening of Menelaus from the bypass to the new Ferristown School. They will be the Prospect Street project, which involves drainage, bike trails, sidewalks, and a pedestrian bridge. It's already ongoing. And then the final one will be the widening of 25 from Ellipse out to the bypass. That is being designed. will be designed and funded, has been, if the state will let loose of it. Now, in terms of things we need to do and would like to do, new reservoir, stormwater systems, upgrading the electric system. We've completed the sewer system upgrade, we've completed the water treatment upgrade, but we've got a continuous need for infrastructure, maintenance, improvement.
And it's your time to pull out of the fishbowl. Happens quick, doesn't it?
I'll have to talk slower. Do you believe that the sale of alcohol in Berea, in whatever form is approved, will provide a positive economic impact to Berea? I don't know the answer to that. I would assume that there will be an impact. I suspect, though, that like so many simple solutions to complicated questions, that people who advocate both ways don't truly know what the consequences are going to be. For instance, if we got it in restaurants, I would assume that there would be some adverse impact on some of the smaller restaurants that can't do it, or even some of the non-chains that might be put out of business. It is one of those things that is more emotional than intellectual, I think.
No, you can answer that one before you drop.
I can,
But
I have to? I thought you told me I could do either one. Okay. Same question. Do I believe that alcohol sales, whatever? You know, we look at what other people, other towns are saying that they did see some economic impact. They're also saying there's some extra expenses involved with having alcohol in town. To know exactly how that's going to impact Berea, I don't know either. I know I can go to London and Corbin and Lancaster and Danville, and a lot of the people there think it was the best thing that ever happened to their economy because they have new restaurants and they have a new source of revenue because there's a huge tax base that you can put on alcohol. But at the same time, there are still people that are extremely upset about it being in there. And that is why that it's set up for the citizens, for you guys to decide. It's a moral and religious issue. You guys get to decide. I believe as mayor, my job is to make sure people know the vote's coming up, make sure I can do everything they can to register to vote, and then get them out to vote. That would be my position as mayor. Okay. Do you think the current Planning and Zoning Board reflects and represents the various interests that make up our local economy? Proportionately reflects the present. I don't believe that the planning and zoning as it is now is a good representation of the people of Berea. I believe that there's several factors that we need to take into place when we put people on planning and zoning. We should not have people that work for the same place. We shouldn't have people that go to the same church. We shouldn't have people that live in the same neighborhood. We should make sure these people are a representation of all of the people of Berea. We need educated people. We need people who have been successful by working hard. We need people that live by the bypass. We need people who live on a dead-end street with no connector. And in order to do that, we have to take a lot of consideration when we're appointing new people. And I really believe that when the group is more representation of the people of Berea, we'll get a better job in the decisions that they make.
Well, in a way, that's kind of like, what does it mean to be representative of Berea? Does it mean you have so many people with white hair, so many people with red, so many people that are blondes? No, you want to have a criteria that is important to planning and zoning, and that is land use. And if you think about the types of people that we have 2 civil engineers, we have an architect, we have a banker, we have a lawyer, we have a farmer, we have a nurse, we have a contractor, we have a teacher who is an expert in sustainability. I think that cross-section, And of course, we've had changes in the Planning Commission. We've had different people come on and go off. But I think that is a very healthy, balanced group of experts who can make wise decisions as long as they're not self-interest, they're working for the public interest, for the land use of Berea.
Okay, we've made it through 2 pulled questions so far. Try to keep it from being confusing. And Steve, your time to go into the fishbowl again.
You said 2 pulled questions. Is there some other kind of question?
Well,
unpulled or
well, the follow-ups, you see, that's a little separate.
follow-ups? Have we had a follow-up yet? I'm just trying to delay you. What is your position on whether the restaurant tax needs any adjustments, higher or lower, and why? Well, it can't go any higher. It is at 3%. That's what the statute says. I think the restaurant tax is fine. I think if you will remember, in 1979, the city council took up the question of building a community center. They had hired an architect, they bought the land, they designed the building. My father on the council moved to build. We had construction money from the state. It did not happen, and the money was sent back because of concern about operating cost. And the council would not pass at that time, the motel tax. It is money that represents an opportunity to do positive things for Berea. Tourism is important. It is an economically stimulating, contributing, non-polluting economic development form, and this is the way into it, through the restaurant tax. And we've got 40, 50, or 60% of people from out of town paying it.
I think this question is one where we determine if we're going to listen to what people are saying or if we're going to do what we want to do in the government. I've knocked on 1,000 doors and talked to hundreds of people, and the only thing that the people in Berea are more upset about than the little park up there on Boone and Chestnut is the restaurant tax. And the thing that I keep hearing is over and over, the people know what the tax can be used for, which makes me very happy. They know what it can be used for, they know what it can't be used for. They know that this tax can be used for ballparks, for soccer fields, for event centers, and they're really concerned of why since 2003, when this first came up, when they went to Mount Sterling to talk to the people of Mount Sterling about the park they put in, we've been talking about using part of that money for something that creates tourism in other areas other than just arts and crafts, and something that can be given back to the people. And the people are upset, they feel misled, and they're upset about paying the tax and not getting anything back for it from their community.
Did I ask that? Oh, I can't follow up with that.
Nope, you're done.
I'll have to squeeze it in.
In your closing statements, you can. Okay. Okay, this is.
Point of order.
Huh? What'd you say? Okay. How would you as mayor go about formulating the city's annual operating budget? Anyone that's been listening to anything I've been saying since I've started, I've been talking about open government, open government, open government. And here's an example of why. If our government was open, every one of you all would have had an opportunity to look at the budget for the last 8 years. What you would see is for 8 years, our budget is missing budgeting by anywhere from 13 to 22%. When you miss a budget in double digits once every now and then, that's like something bad happened, you missed your budget. When you're continually budgeting, you're decreasing your revenue perspectives and increasing your cost. That is just a form of propaganda to convince us that we don't need the money. And then we need more money so we can tax you. And then what happens, you come up 8 years later and you can say, I balanced all the budgets, but this past year we did balance the budget. They missed the budget by $1.5 million, which that would not work anywhere in the world if you miss your budget by that much, but we still had a deficit spending. And that's what you would know if our government was more open and you had a chance to look at those budgets.
This is not a question of open budgets. This is a question of good municipal budgeting, and that is, it's a rule. You underestimate revenues, you overestimate expenses, so that you can guarantee, except in the case of Richmond, that you don't have a deficit. You are unable to have a deficit in Kentucky. And so that's why you do it. And a budget is a guide, it's not a straitjacket. And as far as the restaurant tax, the proceeds from the restaurant tax may not be used for recreation, soccer fields, construction in that way, unless it is intended to draw and fit in with a tourism plan. Now, you can have tourism broadly defined that's more than arts and crafts. And also, oh shoot, I forgot I was going to respond to something else, but I'll remember it. Thanks.
Just before you draw, and Steve will pick the next question, probably in lieu of our time, this will be our fourth drawn question coming up. Each will have a draw. This will probably be the last one, so you'll get to pull yours at this.
This is the last question?
Yes, it is.
You don't want us to answer all these? We'll sit here and answer them all.
You know, you would answer all of those. But that's why it was picked at random, you see.
Do we have to, Gary will make us leave? I'm willing to try if you want. What is your vision for Berea? In 4 years, what will our community look like under your leadership? My vision for Berea is one of opportunity. Berea abounds with opportunities. Let me just give you 5 that I can name right off. 1, projects that are already budgeted, and I've listed those from the bypass to the 2 road widenings to the Prospect Street project. Those are going to happen in the next 4 years. The Ferristown Middle School will be open in August, and then the county school will be building an elementary right beside it. That is a real opportunity. Tourism is cementing a partnership with the Lexington Convention Bureau so that they together can target Dayton and Cincinnati audiences. We have the very good likelihood of getting an energy grant to map our carbon footprint and become more energy effective both as a government and as individuals. And lastly, in 2013, Tokiko will be building a hybrid engine here in Berea. Those are 5 reasons why we ought to be optimistic, and there are lots more.
Okay, what would I like to see Berea look like in 4 years? I would like for the people that are disappointed in the fact they feel like they don't have a say in our government to feel like that Berea is not only a part of not only their home, but they're also a part of the government. I would like for Berea to be so open with their public records that people are proud, for us to be proud to show them our bank statements, for us to be proud to show them every check that we sign, and for them to feel good that we're using their tax dollars in the most appropriate way possible. I'd like for them to be able to watch city council meetings and see cooperation and teamwork fostered with all the people that they've elected. I also would like to see Berea be in a position to be able to see growth and to be able to leave their money in Berea. We should not have to just buy gasoline in Berea to drive to Richmond and Lexington to buy the goods and services that we need. We do not have to continually go out of this town to work because there's no jobs here. The biggest way we make money in this town is through occupational tax. If there's no jobs, there's no increase in occupational tax. One more question?
You're picking the last one, yes.
What is your position on the proposed community event center for Berea? There's 2 groups of people in this town that need something. There are seniors and there are teenagers. There's thousands of other ones that also need things, but we can keep a 5-year-old busy every single day of the week. You look for someone 15, something for them to do, we don't have anything for them to do. We also have a lot of very active adults in our community who are very limited on what they have to do. If we had some kind of a community center, would be the word that I would use, or an event center, depending on what words you want to use, this is a facility that our adults can use during the day, and then we can have activities in the afternoon and the evenings for our teenagers. If we do not keep our teenagers occupied doing something productive, they will entertain themselves.
I'm all for the community center. I've been for it since my dad made that motion in 1979. I'm for a community center if at this time we can afford to buy the land, we can afford to construct it, we can afford to operate it. And if you remember, it was the questions about the ability to operate it back in 1979 that caused the council to send that money back. What we need to do, what has been proposed and what is in the works, is to do a feasibility study on a plan that suits the needs of Berea. That feasibility study will go a long way in terms of telling us what we are able to do. Let me just comment in my waning seconds is that one of the things we should have talked about tonight, and we could have talked about, was economic development. I don't think that we have really figured out, number one, what Berea's economy is, and number two, how can we do smart economic development? I can tell you next time.
Thank you for your questions there out of the fishbowl. We didn't pick them all, but we picked some very good ones. We will now get ready for closing statements. Each will have 90 seconds, and we'll start with Mr. Conley on the left.
Let me just try to do a little bit of my economic development. I think what we need to do is to build on Berea's strengths, and we already have a resilient manufacturing base. We've got a broad institutional and nonprofit presence. We've got a nationally known tourism that can be more broadly defined and built. We've got the opportunity of niche retail. We have to accept the fact that we're in the shadow of Richmond and Lexington, and we can't out-recruit them, but niche retail and then entrepreneurship. We also need to improve our infrastructure and augment our educated workforce with the vocational school. Let me just say that tonight you have a choice. You have a choice between seeing Berea as a problem or full of problems, or as one with possibilities. I would encourage you that Berea is abounding in possibilities. It is morning in Berea. It is not midnight. We need to work together, seize those opportunities, and just do good things. Thank you.
First thing I'd like to reflect a little bit back on the restaurant tax. Most of the people that I've talked to in town do realize that that money for the restaurant tax can only be used for recreational funding if it brings tourism in. The Spoon Bread Festival, when they had the 5K race, brought people in from 8 different states. We have a lot of our recreational leagues now have invitational tournaments, which would also count as tourism, that brings lots of families in. When families go and they visit places, 2 of the things they love to do is they love to eat and they love to shop. By bringing people into Berea for any reason, it would be hard to come to Berea and not enjoy our arts and crafts community. I believe we can help our artists by bringing people to Berea for any reason. It doesn't matter why they come in. We need to have them here. Also, I have to talk about you could say you don't have to ask a man what his priorities are. You can look at where they spend their money. Tourism budget this year is $1.5 million. Economic development is under $100,000. In an open government, we never have to wonder how things are being spent. We never have to wonder and worry and not trust people. If we have nothing to hide, we should hide nothing. I think Berea is the greatest place in the world, or I wouldn't be willing to dedicate 4 years of my life to make it better. I ask you to please check me out, call me. I have knocked on not a million, but I've knocked on a lot of doors trying to catch people, and that's because I want to meet you. I want to have a chance to talk to you. Call me, check out my website, but please make a decision based on facts, not on emotions. I'd appreciate your vote.
We want to thank our candidates here for their participation in this, and in a big gym with the kind of cavernous in here with just several of us here on the floor, and we certainly want to thank our audience for staying with us here. We'd like our audience, if they would, let's give our candidates a big hand before they leave us. We want to wish them well in the upcoming election. You may have noticed, too, our program was recorded this evening, the first part as well as this, and can be viewed on BereaOnline.com. Later this week. I believe it's set for Thursday, but just check that out. That's all one word, BereaOnline.com. On behalf of the Berea Chamber of Commerce, we want to thank Berea Community School and Superintendent Gary Conkin here at the Conkin Gym for allowing us to utilize this beautiful facility and hosting this event. Lastly, people in the audience and everyone, exercise your right to vote Tuesday, November 2nd. Thank you, everyone.